Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we work on Django apps, and I build in front of you, I should say. I'm not building this necessarily for you, but I build Python applications, web applications, using the Django web framework. And we're going to continue on the homeschool application that I'm usually using as the project example. It's a real application. It's used by real people, including my spouse. It's used by homeschool families to do their scheduling and planning. And in the process of building that application, I show you some things about Django along the way. That's really the intent, is not only to make progress on the project, but also to demonstrate to you how Django works. So we're going to dig into this, and it's been a while since I've streamed. I've been doing traveling and vacation and being sick and all sorts of stuff. So we're going to get back into this, and I'm going to look at the issues that are available. We'll either pick from a bug that's been reported by one of my customers, or we'll pick up a new enhancement and go from there. You're welcome to ask me anything. If I can type in the comment box, ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. That's what I'm here for. I do, on occasion, answer questions outside the realm of those areas, but I don't venture too far off that path. So if you want to talk to me about general software development or my text editor or anything like that, that's cool. But generally on web stuff. All right, let's look at this list of things that we've got and figure out what is the next thing to work on. So I use GitHub to track the issues. It's a plain, easy way that I have found to keep aware of what customers want or what I have to work on next. And I have not looked at the list in a while, so let's see if there's anything that's a good candidate. One of the things that I did a while ago was sort of categorize some of the features that my spouse wanted, and she had some priorities on some of these. I don't know that we'll be able to get into all of these on this particular night. Well, we're certainly not going to be able to get onto all of them. I don't know if any of these are appropriate. This is what I should have said. So let's look through here. What could be a good thing to do? This is like a ton of new work. That's also a ton of new work. This one seems kind of like a small chunk to go through. So let's start here. So here's the comment from the customer. The customer in this context is my wife. So she was noticing the end of her school year, and she found this and says, now that I only have 2 months left in the school year, the calendar looks weird, showing just 2 months instead of 3. I'll show you the place where that happens, and then we'll figure out how to make it show those 3. Apologies, I am still at the tail end of a cold, so hopefully not too much of that comes through in the audio, but that's where I'm coming from today. And then I had asked her some questions about which 3 months should it be? Should it be looking ahead? So well, let's see what this looks like first. You're probably like, what is this guy talking about? If you've never joined before and never seen the app before, that would be a totally logical conclusion to not know what the heck I'm talking about. So let's start up the web server. Oh no. It looks like I have not run all the right stuff in this particular virtual environment. So let's get everything loaded up. Well, that is special. Module not found named pip. You know what it is? I bet that this Python is linked. I probably did a brew install at some point, and so this particular Python doesn't have what I need, and it doesn't have pip. That's super weird though. Yeah. See, that's not right. Okay. So let's deactivate the virtual environment and just start afresh, shall we? And this can show you how I like to work with virtual environments. Virtual environments, if you're not familiar with them, are just directories of code that help isolate one project that you might be working on from another. Python can put its packages that it installs into a global shared space, but that has a tendency to create conflicts between packages. And I have a bunch of different Python projects on here, so giving each one its own little directory, to its own little playground to work in, helps make sure that they don't stomp on each other. That's what virtual environments are for. So here we are. We've got Python 3. It's running 3.10.4. And so we can say Python 3, and we use the -m for the module flagged, so say which module you want to use. I want to use the virtual env module, and then I want to name my virtual environment with the same name, which is why I write it twice. And once I run that command, what it's going to do is create this directory that will have a pretty standard format. We're not going to dig into that, but this is the directory format. And so it's kind of ready to go now. It's primed to install stuff into it. And so we can say, we can activate it, which is what you see on the side over there where, I can't do this. No, that's not going to work. So on the left side of my terminal, you can see that it's got the virtual env in parentheses. And that lets you know that the virtual environment is activated, which just means that it's available on my path. Like if I look at which Python, it's going to be a Python that is in this particular directory. So now that that's there, we can say pip install, and we can install, oh, I thought I'd have it handy. Pip install, I've got to install 2 requirements files in my project. I have a requirements dev.txt, and then I have my regular requirements file. And this is just a list of packages that I need to install. Most of those I hope will be cached, so this should go pretty quickly. Ooh, there's some pretty colors. I can see that this version of pip, I believe, is using Rich, which has become a popular Python package in the ecosystem that adds color syntax and little progress bars and little things like that. That's what you're seeing happen there. With any luck, I don't run into any trouble installing these packages. Usually if I have some virtual environment thing that happened like that, it's because I installed a different version of Python, either with Brew, which is a Mac package management system, or some other means. And means that my old virtual environment is no longer valid, is not linking to the right dynamic libraries. Oh, nuts. Here we are. Okay. Well, this is going to be an interesting evening if we're... This is sometimes how Python goes, though. So I guess if you're here to see Django stuff, we may get to that eventually, but one thing at a time. So there is... Let's break this down. How do you solve a problem like this? So what's happening? There's this... You can see this setup. So some packages that you install from the Python package index will be binary. Like they will be built for your platform. So that in my case, the Mac operating system that I'm running on will have a version that's compiled specifically for that. So if there's like C code or anything like that, it will just work out of the box. Other packages, though, will not have that binary stuff done for a variety of reasons. Like they don't want to provide that, they only want to provide the source code, whatever. Sometimes these packages need to do compilation on their own. in order to actually happen successfully. So CFFI is one of these. It actually it stands for C as in the programming language, and then FFI is the foreign function interface. So it's a library where if you want to connect some of your Python code to C code, you could do CFFI as like a translation layer and calling the C functions directly. In order to do that, though, it has to actually build an extension. Extensions are the part of the Python packaging that does compilation stuff. And so that's when we're getting down in here. You can see one of the processes that had to run that was doing this compilation failed. And when we get down to it, we've got Clang, which is a C compiler, and it's got all these flags and different things. And then it says, hey, error, arm, blah, 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 blah. So FFI prep closure, like, and just to be really clear, like I'm reading this like I know what I'm talking about, but when I see these error messages, and this is very common, even if I knew a ton of C, which I have worked with C in the past, I don't necessarily know where this stuff comes from. So what you do is you kind of like parse, like, what's the problem, the category of problem. It is a compilation problem. And then often the smartest thing to do is to literally take this message and put it into like Google and see if you can find the error. Now I'm noticing that the way Clang is showing this, I don't know which direction to read this, like if this is the root or, and then like this is the actual offending line, or is this the most specific? I think it's this way. I think this one's the most specific right here in the FFIH file, the header file at this particular note. So what I'm going to do is take this comment and copy that and then take it directly to Google, paste that in, and see what happens. And this is, you're going to get a range of stuff, some of which may have nothing to do with Python. Like this one's about gem, which is the type of package for Ruby, and so on. So you'll see a range of stuff. Here we go. This looks pretty relevant. Pip install CFFI fails on Mac OS 11, which I don't know that I'm running 11. What am I running? Oh, I am 11.6.5. I forgot the. Okay, so let's see what it says. So they're talking about commenting out something and not doing that. This is somebody else's package, so that doesn't make any sense. And this is from a couple of years ago, so this seems like it should be a solved problem. So I don't know why. And I saw this in the error message, but I didn't bring it up at the time. So here we are. It says this error is strange to me. It's mentioning ARM64. I definitely don't have an ARM Mac. This is a regular Mac on an Intel processor. So this is not using ARM. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Okay, let's keep looking, because this is not a fruitful path. This one says solved. That's promising. This is happening to somebody in Ruby. Okay, it still might have a relevant answer. Ah, so it could be that I need to update Brew. Shivan, yes, I did transition from Twitch to YouTube. And the reason was pretty mundane. I didn't see any particular boost from Twitch compared to YouTube, and I already had a YouTube channel where I was posting other content. So that's why, like, I ended up on YouTube. I find that the platform works just as well for me. I actually think I let you all get a little bit more real estate with this because it puts the actual chat icon on the side, and it's not icon, the whole chat area on the side, and so that frees me up to not have to show chat on my own display. So I find that to be nice. So it makes it so that I can actually show you two terminals without having to like really crowd things up. My version of Python is currently 3.10 is what we're currently dealing with, I believe. Yep, 3.10. But I think the real problem is what this person's pointing out here is I need to brew install the FFI library. And I have a suspect what that's going to do. So what could be happening is when I'm updating from the requirements file, this is maybe trying to compile because it couldn't find any existing library to link to. So if there was a library that was available on the library paths of the operating system, the CFFI package might have just said, okay, I see that and I'll just use that. And since it didn't see that, it tried to compile it itself and be helpful, but then ran into this problem that we're seeing because of some other issue, trying to make a universal thing. So I think what I'm going to attempt to do is follow this person's advice. And we'll get to the link part later. Now, the question is, how long is this going to take? Because Brew is not a quick thing to get going. Brew has this tendency to like update the whole world whenever I install anything. So I get in this pattern of I don't want to run it because often when I run it, it breaks my Python. And so I just leave it and then it just updates a ton of stuff. So we might find that the stream gets aborted pretty early this evening because we don't need to sit around and watch me update my entire operating system. There's also the strong possibility that my Xcode will part of Brew works by using some Xcode tools, which are like Mac software developer tools. And if your Xcode tools are outdated enough, you will then have to update Xcode or this particular part of Xcode. And that usually requires a restart, which I obviously can't stream through. So we'll see how far this process goes. And maybe while it's going, we can look at what I was going to actually show you. I guess I could show you the code and maybe where else could I show this? I could go to the real live site, perhaps. So the actual site is the School Desk app. And I don't have a school year, so let's create one. And we can create one for starting from, I don't know, today. Why not? And we'll go out to next year. And I'm going to make it run through Monday through Friday, like most schools would. So here, we don't have a grade level yet, so we need at least one of those. We'll say, it's a good question, Stephen. I'll get to that in just a second. Just say 4th grade. All right, here we are. So this is what my spouse was talking about. So she had a request to show at least 3 months of the calendar. Now you can see my monitor is already wider than hers. So by default, it's actually showing 4. but I think she has a view where it will reduce them. Well, I don't know. I don't know why mine's showing 4 and her shows 3. Doesn't really matter. So she only, at the end of the year, so if we were at, well, actually, maybe I can simulate this. Let's change the dates on this year. Let's edit this and make it, this is the end. We'll say that the school year goes to 6/22, and then let's just pretend it started last year in September of 21. So now we can see the problem manifest, where it's only showing 2 months because we're at the last 2 months of the year, and she'd like to see at least 3 to get a full calendar view. Don't know exactly why. I think it's maybe she's used to seeing in other calendars. All right, now, Shivan, to your question. Terms and privacy. I got a template. I went to some website that had free templates for terms of service and privacy, and it was just like, fill in your fields here. And like, at this stage with my service, I don't even have an LLC. So this is really just like literally just me as the operated by. So if you had a legal entity, you would fill it in appropriately. But anywhere in this document, they told me to do that. It's my name. So it maybe puts me in a precarious liability position, but I don't have a ton of users. I think if I had like a serious amount of business coming through here, some kind of legal entity, and in the States it's different from the rest of the world, I understand that, but in the States we have LLCs and C Corps and S Corps and something else. There's a few types, and they all have their different pros and cons of what kind of legal entity to build. And then I just drop that information in here. If I was really doing a serious volume of traffic, I might run this by an actual lawyer and make sure that my terms and conditions make sense. But I'm not even making money on this app. I'm losing money slowly because I do have some paying members, but they're not outweighing the cost of running the service. So it's not been a big priority to make this something like airtight. And my policy on all this stuff is like, I want to collect as little about a person as possible. I don't really want their personal details. And, it is a homeschool app, so they are going to put information in about their kids and what their kids are doing, and that's unavoidable. So there will be some stuff about names, but even the way I present the names, I try and be like generic and not get really detailed. I've seen some homeschool applications where you can put in like kids' names and their birthdays and like all kinds of different information about someone, and that kind of freaks me out as someone running a business, frankly. America has a set of laws called COPA laws, which is the Child Online Protection, there's a second P in there, I don't remember what it stands for, Act. And it's about what you have to do as someone who might have the information of someone who is under the age of 18, and how you have to treat their data. And I know this because the last job I worked at before my current healthcare company was in education, and it was working with like middle school kids and stuff. So we thought a lot about this stuff, and it made me never want to have this information if I can avoid it. So that's the kind of thing that if I did get it to a more serious volume and I needed to have my terms of service reviewed by a lawyer, or look at the privacy policy, and you can probably like do a search on this paragraph or something, and you're going to find the template that this comes up with, or you'll find a lot of examples of this stuff. So that was my approach for dealing with terms and privacy policy. Now let's go see how Homebrew is doing. Okay, well, Stinker says I already have it, so let's try reinstalling it. And it could be like that person's answer had. It could be that it's not linking to it properly. So let's do this. Once it's there, and this is where Brew can be useful. It'll tell you. It'll sometimes say, "Yeah, you've installed this particular package, but it's only in a keg only mode or something." They have a bunch of beer themed stuff, and you sometimes you'll have to link to it in certain ways. Thanks for dropping in, Shivan. Appreciate it. And when you do that, that's what will actually make it available to a path. So it could be that after we're done with this installation, Brew will prompt and say, "Hey, you've got this certain version of libFFI, but it's not actually being used by anything. So if you want to use it, you need to put it on your library path in this particular way." And that's what that user had on his page over here. So you can see what he's doing. And I presume it's a he. It looks like Nick, but with the letters transposed. So there's a symbolic link from the FFI header to the location here. And that's probably the location where his package stuff was looking to install this. So what I think I'd rather do instead of that is use some particular environment variable that will change the library path of where Python is looking up certain libraries to one of these locations here. Maybe that made no sense. That was probably not very well explained. I'm getting a little tired. I was dealing with some stuff at work right before I got on, and probably running out of energy. Let's see if there was anything at the top that might have hinted at what we need to do. So it's removing all the files, and then I guess it's going to get a whole bunch of new stuff. Oh, okay. So because we are reinstalling FFI is like it's a pretty low level library, and it gets used by a lot of interpreted languages to talk to C libraries, which are really fast. So, although I ironically don't see any of them on this list, but it just means that because we told it to reinstall, all of the downstream bits are also having to reinstall, which includes a bunch of stuff. I'm hoping they go quickly, but it's got to go get them first. Oh man, now we got to get dependencies of dependencies. So we're getting down to OpenSSL. Sometimes it's actually kind of fun. Maybe I'm weird in this way, but it's fun for me to look at this list and see how is all of my software connected. I find it neat to like kind of explore some of these things. This is an interesting one. So Brew's hitting some kind of error with Python. It's unfortunate. I don't know if that's because I think I've installed Python through python.org as well, so it might be fighting with locations on it wants to install something in this one location, and maybe the python.org installer wants to also install to that location, so it doesn't know what to do there. I'm hoping that that doesn't matter because these are Python 3.9, and I specifically have installed Python 3.10 through python.org, I believe, which is the version that I would like to use, and I think they should not be in conflict with each other. But it could be, what else could it be? As we get through this, as I'm thinking through this actually, if Python was indeed installed through python.org and libFFI is installed through Brew, it could very well be that the Python library paths that the python.org Python is compiled with doesn't have anything from Brew. So we might have gotten this command to work from the very beginning if we were using the library paths that included Brew. Again, maybe that didn't make a ton of sense. I will hope to show this off after it's done. I'm going to give this a few more minutes here to finish this off. We're at H. I don't think there were that many left to go. Yeah, we're at Harbuzz, and we got to get through maybe another. So that's probably like 50% of the way. But the reason a lot of these can go as fast as they can, I believe, is because, again, they're kind of like the Python packages that have precompiled stuff. I want to say that Brew packages are similar. And the rationale behind this is pretty evident when you start to think about it. If there are tons of developers out there that are running Mac OS 11.6.5, whatever, and they're all using the same architecture because they all have the same Intel processor under them, which means the instruction set that the computer wants is all the same. From that point of view, you have all the information you need to compile it once. And when a compiler runs, what it's really doing is taking that code and translating the code into the machine code that a processor knows how to interpret. So if you know the machine and you know the operating system, you know all those bits of information, you can in advance say, okay, I can go ahead and give you the machine code that's going to work on your processor because we can compile that somewhere else. And the benefit is should be fairly evident, I hope, but compiling it once for hundreds of thousands of people potentially means that all of those people don't have to compile it, waste that energy, waste that time, all of that stuff. We just get we sort of centralize that effort into a single place. So that's the benefit of compiling stuff. The downside is that there are some computers out there that have different configurations. They're either on exotic chipsets, like there's still mainframes out there. There's a lot of stuff that maybe wasn't exotic once upon a time, but is very different from the standard today. And so it's nice to be able to have the source code so that if you ever need to compile it for your platform, you still have that option. It's more work, and it means you spend the time doing compilation. Sometimes compilation can be really slow, but having both options is it's nice 80-20, I guess. It works for about 80% of the people, and then the 20% doesn't. They still have an out. So where are we now? We're now at graph is. I guess the sequence of this is not linear as I saw from the list at the top. It's probably building up a dependency tree and then evaluating what makes sense to go first. What's the lowest level dependency? Because you don't want to do a high level dependency and then go and install a new low level dependency, which is going to invalidate the compilation or the installation of the high level dependency. You want to like work from the layers to the bottom and build up to that top level thing. Usually that means that languages like Python end up being towards the top because they're often built on these other C libraries and things that you see here. This Qt package is cute. It's pronounced cute. It's a graphics package, not like computer game graphics, but like building applications in a cross-platform way. I'm not sure why it's trying to install right now. I don't remember if I ever installed Qt directly for some project, or if it's some dependency of some other thing that I needed. This is the challenge with running a computer that is as old as mine. This is a computer from 2014. And I've got projects on here that I don't even remember what I did use them for. Like looking at this list right now, Poplar doesn't seem to have any dependency that, or it's not a dependency of something else. So it means at one point I installed Poplar, but I don't know why. Uh-oh. There's the Xcode warning. I don't know if that means if it's too old. It says it's outdated, but is it too old? I don't know. Now we're installing Python 3.10 from Brew. This is maybe not good. There's a classic. I don't know if it's classic, but there is a popular XKCD. Let's see, XKCD Python. Clicking on this one. I love Python as a language. I think it is a fantastic language. It is not without its challenges. And there are well-known Python people that will criticize this diagram, but at the same time, this diagram's not totally wrong. You can sometimes blame the user, but maybe the user got here because the information out there is not very clear. And so what are we talking about? Like I'm talking about I just installed from, if I installed from python.org, a version of Python, and then I also installed from Homebrew, which is what Brew is. That's the name of the tool. It's actually called Homebrew. Then where are all these paths? And this comic is a little older now. So this is back when Python 2 was dealing with Python 2 versus Python 3. So you had Python 2.7, and you're dealing with Python 3.6 at the same time. And then you have a version from your operating system. So Mac, for many years, I think they removed it recently, had its own version of Python on it, which you didn't want to mess with. And that came with its own version of pip. And then if you do data science stuff, you might have a version of Python from Anaconda. So it really does get can get kind of messy. And this is something that's, I think, is especially true for new Python developers. There have been a number of improvements over the years, especially like I think if you're on Windows, there are some nice, like you could be at the terminal and you may have not even installed Python yet, but I want to say that there's some kind of Python prompt. Like if you try and type Python into a shell terminal or a PowerShell over there, it will prompt you to go to the Windows store, I think. Not a Windows user anymore, but I know that things are improving. But it's not without its challenges. Ah, phooey. Okay. So I don't want Python 2. Don't know what's trying to install Python 2. So I don't really care about it. This is my list of stuff. Brew, help. Brew commands. Somewhere, I don't remember which one, and it might have been. It maybe this was it. Maybe this is all the stuff that I've installed over the years, which would be seems like a lot. But there's got to be a way. I believe there was a way for me to see what are the actual things I've typed brew install ... whatever that is. And because a bunch of these things I'm positive that I have never ever typed in. Like I have never on my own wanted to install whatever this is, Open Core AMR. I have no idea what that is. So I'm sure that some of these things are dependencies of other things. So just like when we've talked about in previous streams, I have a requirements file. It's a .in file. And then I also have a requirements.txt file. And the difference is, whoops, I brought that up twice. Hold on. Requirements.txt. The difference between these two is that this list over here, the requirements.in file, is what my app actually needs to use. It's what it actually desires to import directly. What's over here, though, is all of the dependencies all put together into a big pot. So you can see where one of them, like I use bleach directly, and it's telling you I've got it from the requirements.in file. And I use Sphinx, but I don't use Babel directly. But Sphinx depends on Babel, so it has to bring it in. And that's what the difference is between the two. So I think similarly, Brew has a same kind of concept where there are dependencies between things, and there is somewhere a way to list what I have asked to install. And I don't remember what it is. And I'm looking through this set of commands. And it's not jumping out at me, but I've been critiqued about this in the past, about it being really obvious. But what I've told people is that when you're actually talking to a camera, sometimes it's actually hard to see all the details. So if somebody sees it and says, hey, it's probably this, let me know. Otherwise, I'll continue like poking on here until I have a chance to scan through all of these docs looking for something. And then if we don't find it, we'll go search for it. Because I know I've done this before. Look for what have I installed. Depths, maybe? No. Install leaves? I think that might be it. Brew leaves. Yeah, this is the list. I don't know what's called brew leaves. That's not how I view a tree. Okay, well, I guess you could argue that is a classic like computer science kind of tree thing where you have a graph and at the bottom the nodes that have nothing below them are the leaves of a graph. Um, but I like to think of it the other way, the top down, like all the things that I asked to install, and then those have their own little graph underneath them. So I think the logic here is a little inverted, but it has the same effect. So these are the things that I have installed at some point. Python at 2 is on this list. It's probably because, again, this computer is really old. So I think I can get rid of Python at 2 and finish the Brew install. This is kind of an interesting, I didn't think I'd be walking through a process of going through Brew, but this is something that real developers have to do, many of them on the Mac anyway. And if this isn't your thing, if you're not on the Mac, maybe you're on Linux and package managers, you'll have to deal with apt, or it's not yum anymore on Red Hat. What is it now? It's D something. I don't remember. I'm not a Red Hat guy. All right, so let's do brew commands again. I think it's brew uninstall is what the one we want. Yep. So we're going to do brew uninstall Python at 2. Well, that was shockingly easy. And now we can, I guess, do brew upgrade. Which is going to finish the process. So if at any point like brew gets aborted through some error that it wasn't able to find something, or you can essentially tell it, hey, just pick up where you left off, go back to what you were doing, try it again, and it will resume. I think in this process, though, the last time I did this, I was just trying to install libFFI, and it was trying to only work on the dependencies of those. And now that I did a brew upgrade, it basically says like, well, go get them all. So we really are dealing with we're down in the depths here, installing all sorts of stuff like OpenJDK. You can see basically it's the graveyard of every project I've ever worked on in the last 8 years. That's fascinating. There was a time period where I ran RabbitMQ directly for my last job, so I had to have Erlang installed. I think I also went through a period where I was using Elixir, so I also needed Erlang installed. What else is fun that we can comment on in here? Hugo is what I use for my static site. That's a good tool. I don't know why this ng-http2 is in here. I think that's like a web server of some kind. I'm not really sure. There's Rabbit. Like I said, I use that for work. There's an OpenJDK on here. Although I think I have trimmed this down. This used to be a much longer list of different tools that I've used. And periodically, I've had to go get some tools. Like I'll work on, I was working on a Vim project. And the Vim project had a test suite that was using Ruby as the test runner. So in order to make this change, I think I was working on Lua support. This gets very meta. So I have a plugin called Vim Test that allows me to run my tests quickly inside of my Vim editor. And I had a Lua project, and I wanted to make some changes to the way that my Lua project tests were running with this plugin. So I had to work with, I was working on Lua in Vim, writing Vim script, which is its own language, And then I had to use this test runner for this Vim project, which was a Ruby tool. So I had to go get Ruby in order to run the Vim tests in order to get my Lua support going. So anyway, I think sometimes your open source journeys, if you choose to take them, will lead you down interesting paths that will expose you to a bunch of different languages. I think in the process you kind of learn they're mostly the same, and so any debates or wars that you might see about languages are pretty pointless, I think. I mean, I still have my preferences, but yeah, it's kind of silly to see that stuff. Okay, what do we have left here? So we're upgrading Heroku tools. Apparently I don't know why. Oh, I had a OpenJDK. What did I get this for? This is a good one. Actually, if you want a good book to read and you're feeling pretty nerdy, this is a fantastic book. I still have a desire. I want to buy a paper copy of this thing because it is epic, and this guy is dedicated. Robert Nystrom. You can read the entirety of this book on his website for free because he's awesome like that. But you can also pay him. And I read one of his books, not this one. He's got one on game programming that was excellent that I read online and then bought the digital copy just because I wanted to support him. But the way that Robert is able to present how to do a bunch of things is he's a really great writer, and I'm not a great speaker tonight. But what is crafting interpreters about? It's about actually building an interpreter, an interpreted language like Python. And what does that mean? And like, how do you go about doing that? And there are multiple ways to do it. And he's even got it in his little chart here of here's one way to do it, and here is another way to do it. And both of them are effective and can do the job, and one of them is going to be faster than the other. So in this project of building a language, he sort of outlines, here's the language that we're going to build. It's kind of a Ruby-ish, Python-ish looking thing. It's an interpreted language, and he does 2 separate implementations in the book and explains every step along the way of what is it you're actually building. One of them is built with Java, and it's walking through the AST. And you may not know what that means, but you would if you read this book. The other interpreter is written directly with C. And so it's a different model that instead of walking in AST does some code generation and builds some machine code and does a virtual machine. It's pretty cool. So it's definitely a good book checking out. And it's why, I think it's the only reason why I have OpenJDK installed on my computer, because I needed it for that particular book to follow along, because it was actually really fun. The way that the chapters in that book are written is that you can write that version of the language for that chapter and get something working. And it's a technological marvel that he was able to do this as a book author, because he's able to make a working version for each chapter, and somehow in his own project he's able to like use macros or something clever so that he can have a single source of code for all the different versions, and he's able to generate out the different versions at build time for his book. It was phenomenal. Like, I read his blog post about how he wrote his book, and it's just the amount of time he dedicated to that project was insane. Okay, where are we at this process? Lots to do here. Apparently it takes a long time to delete a bunch of files. I don't know. When this is all done, if this gets all done and doesn't bomb out and say, like, actually, you need to install Xcode, then we'll go back to that pip install command. My guess is it's still going to fail. After all this, I think it's going to fail because I think what we're going to need is to link to the libraries in the proper way. And we'll see how to do that, I hope. Rajesh, thank you for joining in. What am I trying to build? I am trying to... this stream tonight started with me trying to run my Python web server. And my computer needed some software updates. And so I made the interesting choice to try and do the Brew install that I thought would fix things. And have been explaining how Brew works, how software upgrades work, and all of that sort of stuff. So not everybody needs to hear that kind of message. Some people are very versed in this kind of area. But I don't know that I've seen folks get on a stream and really talk through a Brew install and what the details are happening to their knowledge. Because I've seen this process play out many times. I've stared at this kind of output many times and have some thoughts that were worth sharing. So as it's been going along, I've been explaining the history of my laptop, which is now old, and the stories that and the projects that it has seen. But to answer your real question, which you probably intended, is what am I trying to build? I'm working on a homeschool application that is live. You can visit it today. We were looking at it earlier. It's called the School Desk. It's a planning application that I use with my family, or I should say, my wife uses it. She's the customer. I have some other actual customers that pay for the service as well. And it's an application built in Python and using the Django web framework, and it runs on the Heroku platform as a service. And it's what I normally work on. Where we were trying to get into this bug, and this is how the whole journey started. I was going to get into this. I went over to show the server to illustrate where this area of the code was, and then hit an error immediately, and then ended up on this fun side quest. So earlier I pointed out that sometimes some of these Brew packages will have notes in them, in these caveats sections of you might need to modify this if you're changing this, or you might need to use that. And this is one of these areas where if we got to the libFFI package somewhere in here, it might tell us, hey, this is only available on this library path, and you might need to do something different if you actually have to link to it in some other way. Yeah, these caveat notes are generally good to read to understand. Here's the term I was looking for: keg only, which means that it is not symbolically linked into user local, because there's other software that could be there. Whoops. So it's those kind of packages where you have to do a little bit of extra work in order to make them work optimally with Brew. We're looking like, we're getting to bat and dir-env. These are seeming more like the top level, or from Brew's point of view, the leaves, the bottom of the graph. But these are the kinds of things that I have installed. Oh man, now it's upgrading NeoVim. Even my editor could get blown up in this process. Ugh, okay. But I guess I can go back to Vim if NeoVim is not working out. So I'm always, not always, I'm often reluctant to do this kind of stuff because it I've found in my career that you don't want to be woefully behind. Like there is a point where it becomes painful to be too far behind. But on the flip side, it can be painful to be at the bleeding edge. The bleeding edge is probably appropriately named, where you will waste a lot of time doing this kind of stuff constantly, like constantly waiting for this kind of dialogue, this series of information to pass by just to get to work. So my personal sweet spot is maybe like every 9 to 12 months run this kind of stuff and then let it get through most of the things and let it then settle, get it down to a stable configuration, and then get back to it. Oh man, Godot. All right. I went through a game building phase and I had the Godot project to do build games with. Godot's a lot of fun. Realized that even though I enjoy it, building a full out game is a ton of work, and it's a super saturated market, and I have skills in other places. So I might do more Godot in the future with my children as a fun little side project, but that was another one on there. Gotta wait for Godot to download. Fun. Chrome driver. Chrome driver is a good one. You can use Chrome driver is for like doing headless Chrome. So if you want to do a web scraper and you want to get what's the tool called? There's a popular spidering tool in the Python ecosystem. We even had a presentation on it at Python Frederick, which is my local meetup here in the city of Frederick, Maryland, that allows you to scour the web and needs stuff like Chrome driver. That's gonna bug me. Python's web spider. Scrapey. Yeah. I think it's the one I was thinking of. Spider, no. Scrapey? I'm sure that's what it's called, right? Scrapey. Yeah. Scrapey is a really cool tool. You basically build a small little program and it will automatically go to the different websites, look for information. I actually don't, now that I'm talking out loud, I don't know that Chrome driver really needs Scrapey, or I said that backwards, that Scrapey needs Chrome driver. It's when you want to actually interact with Chrome in the way that it would normally work. So maybe Scrapey does need it. Maybe it needs it to run so that the JavaScript, which is so many websites these days, so the JavaScript can run and load its stuff up, and then Scrapey can then look for any stuff that's on the DOM, like links and stuff to follow. A definite use case for the Chrome driver is using Selenium. So Selenium absolutely needs it. So Selenium is another Python tool that is meant to be a way to automate interaction with a browser. So I've used Selenium for doing some testing to make sure that things are present. I've used Selenium for automating logging into certain websites and doing certain activities that I don't want to do myself, or like pay attention to the terms of service, I should say. This is not advice in that regard, but you can use Selenium for a bunch of stuff. And you can also abuse Selenium and use it in ways that companies do not want you using it. So be forewarned. But that's what Chrome driver is used under the covers there to help that. All right, cool. Looks like we have everything installed and all the notes, all of those caveats and stuff, I think are probably now dumped in one thing at the end. That seems new. That's cool. I like that. I don't think it used to do that. I think you used to have to like go back through and read all of the little bits and bobs. Okay, so let's do this. Let's deactivate that virtual environment. And I'm going to go ahead and even remove it, because I don't know what version of Python it's from now anymore. And I'm going to open up a new tab, because it's very possible that Brew, that my terminal tab needs, my shell aliases and stuff need to be refreshed with the appropriate stuff. So we're going to follow this process again, and then we're going to call it quits. We're going to see how badly it fails again this time. See if we can get past that error message, so they can show you how to proceed if you get stuck with that kind of stuff. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But we're going to try, because I have to get it working again. Otherwise, streams will be very boring as I try and figure out how to make my environment work. So we're going to turn our virtual environment back on. We're going to do the same pip install we were doing before. And we're going to see if it gets stuck at that same CFFI spot. And then if it does, I think we have a different path to resolve the problem that we maybe didn't have before. So all that stuff is cached because we downloaded this earlier, this stream. This part should go pretty quickly. And it says, like, most of those packages, you didn't have to do anything with them. It's just saying, okay, I unzipped it and I put it in the right place and it's done. But you can see it's running through some of these tools, and it has a little bit more setup code to run through, which is why it's saying run setup.py install for, and then it gives the package name for what it has to do. This is where we ran it last time and got through to CFFI, and it blew up. So we're going to see if it blows up again here. And if it does, then we're going to try something else. Same problem. Boo. Okay. So when you're dealing with C compiling stuff, there are a bunch of options that you can pass to the compiler that you can see get translated here. Oh, interesting. We might already be in trouble, because, all right, let's take a look at this. So here's the compiler command, clang. It's a C language compiler. I think that's what it stands for, but it's a more modern compiler, I think. And I think it uses, that's the one that uses LLVM. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. Then not us, not you specifically, but the installation process knows to pass a ton of different flags to Clang to say, hey, this is the thing that you're going to compile. It's all of this information. It's where to look for this, that, and the other thing. And if you look at these flags specifically, you'll see where the code is, where it's trying to pull its code from and what it's trying to compile. So this -c, this is the file that's actually trying to compile, the CFFI backend.c. This is the -o means output. So this is what it's saying, like, here's my input, this C file. When I'm done, put it in this O file, and this O file, I believe, is going to be machine code, and there's another step in the C process of linking. And it's been a while since I've thought through the C build chain, so I might be getting some of this wrong. But generally, you will a compiler will build a bunch of, from the C file, will build a bunch of binary files that are just a bunch of information about code. And then a linker step will put all of those binary files together into a single either library or an executable that can then be run on the operating system. But it's got to get to that step later. Now, the problem is we got to here, and there's this error that's down here. And that's what's blowing up our stuff up here. Like, we can't get through the install step because CFFI is failing to install. Now, what I was going to do is point to libFFI, but you can see here, it might already be doing that. So there's this include directory. And this is where I get a little confused myself on what's an include versus a load -L. Because you can see I've got an example where once upon a time I had to do this for OpenSSL. I had to link to something very directly. And I use this LD flags. So let's take a look, because I got to figure this out. Now's a good time to try and figure it out. C compiler -I versus -L. I don't know if that's going to work on this. We might need, Google might be better at this particular type of search. Goodness. What we're looking for is compiler flags and having a good understanding. C compiler include versus load. I don't know. No. All right. Well, we have Clang here. So let's try the manual page for Clang. So this is, sometimes you can find cool information by looking at manual pages, which is typing man and then the command on your terminal. Sometimes you won't have the manual pages available to you, but here they are for this circumstance. So let's look at -I. So that's add the specified directory to the search path for include files. All right, that makes sense. Let's go back to the top and look for -L. -L is not found. Maybe -L is a GCC thing. Let's see if we have GCC on here. Nope. GCC. GCC is on here, but it's being annoying. So here's GCC's help, which I'd much rather have a man page for, but whatever. That's what we got. There's probably a way to bring it up. Well, this is Clang. Maybe it's like, is GCC just an alias? What? Okay, whatever. I'm gonna pipe this to less, and now we're gonna search for there. So -L is add directory to the library search path. Wasn't that what -I was? -I? Oh. -I is the include search path. -L is the library search path. C library search path. Let's go see if we can learn a little bit about this stuff. This is talking about -I. So it's explaining what the pound include in the C language does. So pound include is a directive that tells C, hey, go look for this file and replace the contents of this file here. I believe that's roughly what it means. Okay. So that's for include files. Cool. What is the library search path? It's not. What troubles me? All right, let's get to the point. What we had earlier in this output is it's complaining about FFI stuff, but it seems like it is including the locations that probably have FFI information in them. It's finding it in Brew, user local seller, libFFI 342. Let's check. So ls user local seller lib FFI 342. And then you'd want to put the include like that, which I think is what we saw. Yep, puts it up to the include. That's right. So I don't know what this means. We have an error directive. We might need to turn off deprecated something, perhaps. That might be it. All right, so I think what might be happening is the compiler might be treating the warning, the deprecation warning, which is added with this. So the -W adds different warning categories. And I don't know why. Well, we didn't call clang with that. I don't think. Oh, here it is. W all. That's probably saying include all the warning categories. And then maybe it's then treating that warning as an error and stopping. So what could we do to get around that? Well, that's a real bummer. I think there are a couple of options. The first one that pops into my head is turn off the warning. That's maybe not the good option, because I could be dealing with downstream problems from doing that. But got to remember, this is just my local development environment. So kind of it's like, if it works for me, then I've succeeded. But I don't know if it's going to work or not. And then the question becomes, how do you turn off that particular warning? So we've got, all right, maybe we can go look at this. This might be fun. I don't know that I've done this before. Let's go look at this file. Line 354, column 18. Whew. Heavy. Out of my league here. Look at this. Void star, void star, star, void star. Are you kidding me? That is a function pointer. I don't even know what this is anymore. I think it's some kind of void function pointer thing. Okay. Pretty wild. C is an amazingly powerful language, and yet at the same time, man, this might as well be something completely foreign to me. Once upon a time, I knew what all of these parentheses and stars and different spots and directions meant, but that is not this time of my life. And even when I did know that stuff, I'm still not sure I could have navigated through here. So that's sadly not going to be as helpful as I would have hoped for. And it just gets us to that point where it says, hey, this has been marked as deprecated. So that's at least clear enough. So FFI prep closure has been explicitly marked as deprecated. Yet it's here in this CFFI backend in that source directory. And that seems to be a problem. I don't know if it is like the only problem, because it says there's one warning and one error generated. Are they the same because we're treating warnings as errors? I don't know that part. Let's go find Clang, treat warning as error. I don't know which. From the manual. Turning warning foo into a warning even if error is specified. Oh. So W error. But I don't remember, is W all, is that above W error? I don't know. Look at Stack Overflow first. Because this is where we could try, if this is truly the case, that it's being treating warnings as errors, then we could try to change that particular warning, do what this person is suggesting, and say, add in a W no warning, no error for deprecated, and say, forget it. I want to allow the deprecated stuff. But there's two aspects that we need to confirm here. One is, what is W all? Is it above, like even more strict than W error? And if that's true, then that confirms the behavior that one warning does equal one error. And then, assuming that's true, how do we pass in extra flags to Clang so that that we could do something like this of no error deprecated? That's the other bit. All right. So Clang wall. Let's see if that'll come up with something. Found the wall option. The W error makes all warnings into errors. That's what I thought. What is W all? This enables all the warnings about constructions that some users consider questionable that are easy to avoid, even in conjunction with macros. Wall, here we go. Wall turns on all on the following warning flags. Is error on that list? No. Okay. Well, shoot. So if that's the case, what is it that's actually generating the error? And am I just not reading? It could be that I'm not reading this C compilation message properly. Well, this might be it. What if it's been staring at us in the face the whole time? There it is. You son of a gun. There it is. So, Apple ARM64 ABI requires this, but we're not ARM64. So that's what is going on. That's not right. This is not right for my machine. CFFI, and I'm going to paste in that exact message. So this person just installed a different version of Python. They're linking to a couple of issues. There it is. Error, Apple, blah, blah, blah. There's a bug on CFFI that people know about this, but this is look how old this is. It's from 2020. Why am I hitting this in 2022? I'm not building on Apple Silicon, which is Apple's custom chip stuff, right? Man, down in the weeds. For Big Sur Intel, this appears to be this. I am on Big Sur, I think. Big Sur. And I'm definitely on Intel. That sounds like me. This is Paul. But this was fixed in 2020, it says. Oh, man. Wow. Well, I was hoping to have some kind of resolution for this evening, but I am just getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole with maybe not all the explanation that I would like to get. There's probably some Mushtaba, welcome. I am really not getting much to Django today. I've been like trying to deal with issues in my environment, my packages, and installing the latest stuff and dealing with compilation errors. And I'm just hoping that the struggle illustrates how hard software can be sometimes. I'm frankly about out of gas. Yeah, things are not going right for me today. That is accurate. So there's I'm not sure exactly what's left to try. I can try a different version of Python, but that doesn't seem like it's necessarily going to solve the problem. Yeah, still not clear in an answer. And the most extreme version of this is I could switch to Docker and have like Python. Yeah, good sleep. Yeah, might be the right solution. And I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. I'm actually getting over COVID. I had that this past weekend. That was a good time. I'm doing okay. Family's doing okay, so it's all good. But I'm at the tail end of that. So I'm not sure what's left to do. Let's give this, because they're talking about cryptography, which I guess cryptography is, maybe that's what's installing CFFI. I didn't actually even check that. This is a 10.9 universal. Seems kind of weird. Let's see, which version of CFFI am I even installing? CFFI 1.14.3. I guess it's possible that something has changed and I'm on an older version that hasn't happened yet. Whoops. What am I doing? Not thinking anymore. That's what I'm doing. CFFI 1.15. Okay. 1.15 was released. Whoa. Why am I on 1.14.3? If this is that, this was released back in October. What's going on? Is WheezyPrint or cryptography specifying pinning to 1.14.3? Or is my my package list not being updated appropriately in my dependencies? Okay, let's go look at the two. So I'd love to walk away with a solution to this. And if the solution is I can upgrade this to 1.15 and it changes that and fixes something, that'd be awesome. There's a good chance of that. It would probably include a more up-to-date version of CFFI C code, which might get past the error that we're seeing. But might be that there's something here that's blocking stuff. But cryptography has a reputation for being super up-to-date on stuff. So that's 3702. What? Okay, something has happened. They went like really, wow. Okay. What happened? They did a version number switch. 332 is what I have. Now look how deep this rabbit hole is going. Like, what? Why is PyJ? I'm not using JWTs. What's using JWTs? Django all off. Okay. And so that's using. So you start to see the chain of, is one of these dependent upon a particular version, which is then in itself dependent on a particular version, which is then in itself dependent on a particular version. So there are two paths that we can get to the CFFI stuff. And it could be that we need to try and run an upgrade command. So let's try. Can we even get to our pip tools? Oh man. I bet we can. Let's do this. Pip install the dev requirements. Doing that much should work, I hope. Should be able to get, now we have pip tools installed. Because I'm on Z shell, I've had weird stuff for a long time where I need to deactivate and reactivate my virtual environment to get that on my path. But now pip tools and pip compile is available. So we want pip compile, and we want to look at the help for that for a minute. So what I want to do is try to upgrade stuff. Maybe this is what I have not been doing. So I've been relying on Dependabot to do this for me. And I thought it would upgrade dependencies. And maybe it does. Maybe I am up to date, and then I have to go look into the chain and figure out which one of these is the constraint that is blocking me from getting on a newer version of CFFI that will then work on my operating system. But it could have nothing to do with that. It could be that I just need to update stuff. So let's look at what's in the requirements.in file and see, in the text file and see how it was built. So it's running this command. So I want to do this same command, but I'm going to add the -u to that command, which I hope will force it to go look for upgrades. We shall see. And it might take a little longer because it's being asked to do upgrades of stuff. With any luck, oh yeah, look at that. All these different things. Makes me slightly nervous for when I deploy, but I won't deploy until I've tested these things out to make sure that the website still works. And it also, sadly, is a lack of my confidence in Dependabot. I've been really depending on Dependabot to like keep my file up to date, but if it's not doing that, well, that's a little unnerving. Okay. So let's go back to our pip install command from earlier and see how it does. There's a lesson in here, I guess. If this works, probably tells me that it would benefit me to run the pip compile command on some frequency, whether that's weekly or whatever. I don't know what the right cadence is, with the -u option and see if it finds anything. And if it does, then I should probably get notified somehow. I also have, so I've got Dependabot. Dependabot being the service that you can use on GitHub to actually upgrade packages. I've got Dependabot configured to run on the 1st of every month. I just don't have time to deal with it. Some people want it daily, some people want it every week. I've set it for the 1st of every month. You can also set GitHub Actions to go on a cron schedule. So in theory, I could do this as a like 2-phase kind of pass, where I could have Dependabot for the 1st day of the month, and then on the 2nd day of the month, maybe I have pip compile run with the -u flag and see what Dependabot has missed. I might need to do that in order to feel confident. And notice what happened here. Like, we got through, and all of that probably hour and a half of just debugging, looking at C stuff. Hope you learned something about Brew in the process. All that was there has been nullified because it got through all of that just by upgrading CFFI. Super. So maybe maybe another lesson here is check that you're on the latest stuff first when you can, or see if you're on behind if you are running into a particular package. And my brain was not thinking in that spot. All right, so again, I'm just deactivating my virtual environment because of some ZSH stuff. But now, with any luck, Hey, there's my web server. Okay. Long night. So the success is going to be, can we see the web server to end the night? Hey, cool. There it is. So what did we do this evening? We didn't make much progress on anything, but I did get to talk about how Brew works a little bit, how to think about packages. I showed you some of my process for exploring errors. I showed what it's like to just feel stumped and not feel completely defeated by that. Like, I think even though there were points at which, as Mujtaba pointed out, I need a good night's sleep, giving it one last try sometimes helps. And, had I not came to that last revelation to look at some of the versions, a good night's sleep would have helped. And sometimes fresh eyes are what you need. Thankfully, I don't have to spend my fresh eyes in the morning looking at this particular problem. I can think about other problems. So that gets us to this point where I think we're going to wrap up here for the evening. This is basically a deep dive into debugging, and hopefully you learned something. Is there any Django Python meetup coming soon in Frederick? Yes, I think. So as the organizer for the Python meetup, I am trying to figure out what to run next month, and I have not been able to line up a presenter. So it may be me presenting, and I've been thinking of potentially covering HTMX as a topic. Possibility would be showing HTMX work on Django, showing it working on Flask, and I might even throw in Ruby on Rails or Laravel. Not sure on the timing of that, and see if I can open it up to more than just the Python meetup. There's a local web technology meetup that has been kind of on hiatus because of COVID and the whole pandemic timeline, which we want to get rebooted. So that might be a good crossover event to have people come out to that. So that would be the plan. And then in the future, I'd love to do more Django stuff. There's no Django specific meetup in Frederick. My community is just not big enough for that. So we settle for Python and open up the umbrella for data science and all the cool stuff. The dates I have in mind is the Python meetup in town always runs on, actually, this kind of evening. It's but it's on the second Wednesday of the month every month. So that would be, well, I don't have the calendar in front of me. Whatever the second Wednesday in June is, would be the date for that. And those are only in person. I'm doing, it's kind of a one-man show in some ways of like for the coordination aspects. So I don't have a mechanism to reliably do that virtually, but I do also always record them. In fact, if you go, I'm not going to go to it now and self-advertise, but you can go to my YouTube page and look at the playlist. I've got a couple of playlists, and one of them is for all of the Python Frederick events. I try and record them all. June 8th. So June 8th it is. Yeah, that's probably going to be it. Means I need to get on my high horse or hightail and to get some work done there, because I have not done any preparation on that talk, but I think I need to. So thank you for the nudge there, Mujtaba. I will get on that and get back to you. All right, y'all. Take care. I will see you next week, hopefully, and get back to some real Django and Python stuff. Hopefully this was informative, at least at some level, though. Have a good evening.